this segment, a little bit into the next segment. I am joined by Kurt Haskell, one of the survivors of the Flight 253, the Christmas Day underwear bombing flight. They were coming back from an African sightseeing safari with his wife, Lori. They have a family blog. They're also both lawyers. And they witnessed a sharp-dressed man lead the underwear bomber, who they believed to be the underwear bomber, on. The FBI said, no, they didn't see that and have refused to release the footage from the European airport that they were in Amsterdam. Then he reported that in customs, they were all being searched again, obviously on a plane that had a small bomb go off on it that started to fire. And they saw another Indian man. They saw an Indian man lead him up to the plane and get him on without a passport. Get detained, and they said, we've got to get you out of here. We may have found a bomb. Then he told the news about it. He talked to the FBI about it in person. They said no such thing happened. They changed their story days later as other witnesses came forward and said, no, Mr. and Mrs. Haskell are telling the truth. So here's a headline. This is out of the Detroit News. This is out of Michigan. Haskell family. FBI has changed account 4 times. Our story is the same since day one. And so joining us to kind of recap what's happened and why this is important, and I'll get to that before he leaves us, because this is launching some new wars, this underwear bombing, and it fits past signatures that we've seen of false flag events, provocateur events. But to just cover the facts is Kurt Haskell. Kurt, thanks for spending time with us on this Sunday.
Thanks for having me, and thank you to the listeners for the overwhelming amount of support I've received from you.
Specifically from radio, period, or CNN, or from this show?
From the listeners of this show.
Oh, so they've been in contact with you. I would imagine they've been sending you a lot of info.
Yes, fair amount.
Well, Mr. Haskell, you've got the floor here. Kind of break down what happened and the FBI changing its story now 4 times.
Sure. Do you want me to talk about that specifically?
Yeah, I mean, just recap it briefly, but sure. I mean, just
okay. Well, the man I call the man in orange. I'm just going to go over this real quickly for those that don't know. When we were being detained in Detroit, we were held in an area of a baggage claim area. Then all the passengers from our flight. There was nobody else around in this area from other flights, workers. Nobody, except for some law enforcement personnel. After we had been there for about an hour, all the time with our carry-on bags, 3 bomb-sniffing dogs were brought in. One of them sat down by the bag that was brought in by the man in orange. He had on orange. He appeared to be of Indian or Pakistani or some similar descent, maybe around age 30. He was walked back to a room, not in handcuffs. He went in the door. He was in there approximately an hour. When he came out, he was handcuffed, taken away. An FBI officer came up to the group of the rest of us passengers and said the following, which is not exact, but close. You're being moved to another area. It's not safe here. I'm sure all of you saw what just happened and can figure out why you're being moved. We were then escorted out of this very large room into a long, narrow hallway. My story on this has been the same all along, and the FBI now has 5 versions of their story, which I lay out in an article I wrote on MLive. It's actually gotten difficult for me to remember which one is which and when they put them out, but basically when I go out and call them out on this story, then a new version comes out. Their new version comes out, I call them out on that, and another one comes out, and this has happened now. They've now had 5 versions, which I clearly lay out with a time period and with each version, and they're not credible. And the reason, in my opinion, the reason this is happening is there is absolutely no excuse for the reason why. Number one, we were left on the plane for 20 minutes, not knowing if there was another bomb there. Number 2, security allowing us to take our carry-on bags off the plane into the place where we were being held, and we stood there with all of our bags together for an hour until the bomb-sniffing dogs arrived. And then, after they found one, well, then we're moved to another area, and now they don't want to talk about the man who was taken away. I've repeated this many, many, many times, and there's no explanation for any of this except for these stories that keep changing. So make of that what you will, but, I'm kind of irritated about it. And then I see on TV today, I didn't catch the man's name, but the deputy of Homeland Security who now says that, are we still live? I'm sorry.
Yeah, we're going to break. Stay there.
Okay.
You can do another segment with us, can't you, Kurt?
Sure, absolutely.
All right, let's come back and finish up there. And there's been some bizarre statements made by John Brennan, the terrorism czar, concerning this. We'll be right back. Stay with us.